Welcome to the Time to Level Up podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Liebross. Each week, I focus on the systems, strategy, and big thinking you need to CEO your business and life to the next level. Are you ready? Let's go. Hey, Time to Level Up listeners, and welcome back to the podcast. So today, I want to introduce you to a concept that I have been developing over the last year or so, actually, but it's kind of taking a different format on the podcast in the coming months. So over the past year, I've held a series of masterclasses that I've called Get a Grip. And you've probably heard me talk about them on the podcast. And really in that Get a Grip masterclass, what we're doing in there is kind of taking a 30,000 foot view of all of the aspects of a business that one needs to kind of be on top of in order to have an awesome business. So I wanted to kind of take that thinking, but transfer it into a podcast format over the next few months, over using a series of podcasts, so that you kind of understand that all of the things that coaching can actually help you with. Okay, so I have stepped more and more into the shoes of being both a business and life coach. And I love it that way, to be honest, that I get to coach both business and life, because I think for the entrepreneur or the entrepreneurial mind, they're so intertwined, right? And oftentimes on the podcast, I might share with you something about looking at your numbers or your people or how to have more effective systems and processes. But this mini series is going to kind of organize those for you and really tie them into both business and life and help you understand what you need to be looking for, and if you're having trouble, how coaching might be able to help you. So today's episode is kind of an intro episode to this mini series, which I am calling Business Audit to Create Business Awesome. Okay, so I really love the word audit. I think some people are a little scared of it. They don't quite know what's going to come out of an audit. But the way I see it, the way I want to frame it for you is when you do an audit of something, it actually gives you such clarity and confidence to know what you need to work on or don't need to work on, right? And when you work on the right things, you create awesome. Okay, so Business Audit to Create Business Awesome is the title of this podcast mini series. And in today's kind of intro episode, I am having a conversation with a friend and colleague of mine, Jill Lehman, who is an entrepreneur over and over again in several different businesses, who is someone I really admire, who has worn different hats in life. And I just very much value her ideas on what every entrepreneur needs to know. So we're kind of looking at this from the perspective of, okay, what do you need to know about your product and service? What do you need to know about your people? What do you need to know about your numbers? What do you need to know about your systems? What do you need to know about you and how this is all going to impact your family or how to create that balance that everybody craves? So we're giving you this 30,000 foot intro view to the Business Audit to Create Business Awesome podcast mini series. So these, over the next few months, I will be having guest experts on to talk about these specific areas of business, what you need to know, and how they might impact your life too. Okay. So Jill is a master at designing, literally and figuratively, because she's got art in her background and in one of her businesses, but designing a successful world in which she lives in. And she'll admit that it doesn't always look so perfect, but she is someone who designs with intention. So I just want to throw in here a little plug for if you haven't seen or signed up yet for the Design Your Successful masterclass that we're having at the beginning of May, a week's worth of helping you design a successful summer. You need to check that out because listen to what Jill's saying. She's saying you really need to be intentional with the people in your business and in your world, your numbers that are in your business and in your world, how you use your time. It goes right along. It aligns exactly with some of the topics that we're going to be talking about in that Design Your Successful Summer Week. So check that out. You can go to Andrea's with an S, linkswithanas.com to find the link to register for that masterclass. So sit back, buckle up, and enjoy my conversation with Jill Lehman. Hey, Time to Level Up listeners, welcome back to the podcast. I am so happy today to bring to you a special friend of mine and your guest expert for today, Jill Lehman. Jill lives in Indianapolis, and we crossed paths at a dinner maybe a year ago or so, and we became fast friends sitting next to each other, discussing actually, we kind of talked about podcasts that night and joked around about it. But as I started to put together this mini series about your business and what you need to look at in your business, I thought Jill would be the perfect person to kick it off and to help us really explore what every entrepreneur needs to know. Because she is an entrepreneur in several ways, which I'll have her talk about. But Jill, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be on here. And we had such a fun night when we met.
Yes.
I think we could have talked for hours. And I am loving all that you're doing around women and people and business and can't wait to get started.
So tell us about you. Give us the condensed version of all the things, Jill.
All the things, Jill. Well, first off, I'm a mom. I have 2 daughters, one in high school and one in college. I'm a wife. You saw one of my cats earlier, so I call myself a cat handler. We have 2 of them.
Not a cat lady. Owner. I like that better than a cat.
You like cat lady?
No, I like handler better than lady.
Yes, it's handling. It's for sure handling of cats. I'm a business owner in multiple businesses. I'm an investor in startup businesses. And I'm an ebook junkie. So love to listen to podcasts, listen to book on tape. We'll talk about more of that later.
I love that. So, okay. So tell us we'll just dig right in. Okay, what do you think? Let's just dig. What are some of the real basics that every entrepreneur needs to know about their product and service? Because anyone that starts a business is starting a business, even if it's something that's sort of I call it a jobby, like a hobby that's turned into a business or job. They've got something that they want to share with the world, a product or a service. I mean, you actually in your businesses have businesses that touch on both. What do you think they need to know there?
One of the biggest things they need to know is you can love your product or your service, but if it doesn't solve a problem for your audience or your consumer, it won't go very far. So we have to make sure whatever we're dreaming, whatever we bring to the table, it's going to find value and solve a problem.
And that sometimes is easier said than done, right? Because we know what the problem is or what we think it solves, but putting ourselves into what the client is thinking or the customer is thinking is a whole other story. I was just working on this with a client and she's writing an ebook. And we were kind of deciding on what chapter titles should be. And she was writing it kind of from her perspective, but I reminded her, I said, yeah, but why is the person reading this? What problems are they trying to solve? So that really just came up right the other day.
It is because we fall in love with what we, want to bring to the table, or it's a hobby that we want to turn into a business. But we really do have to think, how are people going to consume it, use it, and bring that ultimate value that they want to invest their time, their, dollars to go and spend on that product or service. It's critical.
It's critical. So does it matter if you've got a promotion or it's on sale, or does that matter in the situation? Because I think sometimes we fall back to that if we're not feeling confident about our service or how we're communicating the value of the service.
Yeah, I always say if we have to give it away or undervalue it, then we probably haven't hit the target of what the problem is that is being solved for an individual or the value of something. We can't discount ourselves out of making people find value in our product. The real value has to come from when we consume this or when we experience this, it creates X.
Yes. All right. So tell me about your products and services so we can give this a little perspective.
Sure. So my products and service really focus around people, and I'm a human resource person. So people is a problem that I've had to solve as an HR professional for many years. Everything from how do you retain people, right? How do you engage people? How do you bring productivity around people, service, all those things. And so the natural side, the service side of the business that I do is around HR consulting. So I help clients really figure out the HR strategy, help build their HR teams, coach HR individuals, and everything in between. My second business, which people often wonder how I got started in, is art and art consulting and project management. And it's really the same thing. I explored art when I was trying to figure out how to bring more creativity and engagement into our workplaces. And I was an art lover and saw when I brought art into a space in my own home and environment what it did. And that just was a natural way for me to bring that into the workplace, because we eat with our eyes, we experience environments with our eyes. So if we say we want innovation and creativity, we have to have those visual proof points that these things exist. And lo and behold, that experience, when I brought it into the workplace, I could start seeing the value by having the conversations with the employees, what they liked, what they didn't like. So when I talk about both businesses, art and HR, they're not as different as, people think. Like, how on earth would you have put those things together?
That's so okay. I love how you put that together. I think one of the things that I see with my clients when we talk about the people in their business is that they say they're not creative enough, or they're not problem solving enough. They're just robots, or they're doing what they're told, and I need them to step up their thinking. And when you were just talking, I was thinking, if there was some beautiful picture on the wall, or what they considered beautiful, because that's all in the eye of the beholder, would that stimulate different thought processes? How would that change things, especially in our world of being on Zoom and inside our home offices a lot? Very cool. Can you measure that though? How do you I don't know. This is just a random off tangent. This is not in our notes, but I'm curious, how have you ever thought about measuring the effect of art in office spaces?
Yeah. So I've actually, remember, I'm an ebook podcasts learning junkie. So when I started to kind of dabble in this idea and bringing art into the workplace, I started to study a lot of different aspects of it. One, if you Google the competencies that children get from exploring arts, and then you Google the competencies we're looking for in business today, 9 out of 10 of the competencies are the same. It's amazing. So that's just one example. The next example is, think of during the pandemic when we were all at home, right? And stresses and anxieties were taking over. Many people turned to some form of arts, whether it was re-engaging with music, whether it's I took up painting, or I, had always wanted to, explore knitting or crocheting, whatever form it may be. We brought that into our lives during a time of high stress and anxiety. So we know, when you look at studies, that art and engaging in art can help reduce those stress hormones in our body that will start to develop. They're a natural remedy for that. So, there's just, and I could go on just
So
art's
cool.
impact in, our lives and in our workplaces.
We might have to get some of your favorite podcasts or books on this topic for later. It's so interesting. So interesting. Okay. So, all right. So we have to know the value of our product or service. That's kind of the bottom line there. No, you can't discount that. It's not,
you can't
discounting yourself, and I always say you're discounting the intelligence of your buyer too. Like you're trusting that they're not going to get it. Okay. Tell me a few things that you think that every entrepreneur needs to pay attention to or think about when it comes to their business. Because a lot of times I think entrepreneurs are not, they are business. They become business people, but they may not get into it thinking that they're a business person. And they may not have an MBA or whatever they think they need. So what do you think what are a couple of things that they need to think about?
One of the biggest things that I learned early on is cash flow. And I had been in business my entire career, operations, sat in the C-suites where we always talked about cash flow. But when you own your own business, you really understand what that means and how critical it is and how you have to measure it and keep it top of mind all the time. You have to make sure you're paying attention to what you're bringing in, what's going out, the timing of it, the cost of cash flow and delays in cash flow. All of those things are critical to your business. When you spend, when you kind of hold back, what you invest in, the return that needs to come from it, it really is elevated, from day one of when you start your business, because, there's only, for most of us, I should say, there's only, so many dollars that we have, and we have to make sure we use them wisely. And if we don't have that cash flow coming in, even when we do sell something, because it's taking too long for a client to pay, or we've allowed those billables to, stream out, we can get in jeopardy. And I've been there at times when I, needed the cash flow to come in quicker through an AR. And I realized some of the issues were my own P terms and what I was setting expectations with my customers. So I was paying my bills, but I was letting my customers extend paying me. And that can get you in a negative position pretty fast.
Right. That's interesting, because I always say, are you going to call the electric company and say, sorry, can't pay your bill, turn my lights off? Like, no, you're not going to do that. Right. Yeah. When we talk about paying our own bills or paying for the service we've purchased. So we're going to have a whole episode later on in a few weeks about cash flow. So get excited about that. It's one of my favorite topics. So I'm glad you love it too. And it's different than QuickBooks, my friends. It is different than after the fact looking at money. It is before the fact in a sense, or as it's happening, looking at it. And it's different than looking at the bottom line in your bank account too. So those are all good.
So much to learn in cash flow.
There is
so much to learn.
So much. Okay. So cash flow, what is another element that you think people need to pay attention to in their business?
Well, I'm an HR person. And even in my own businesses, I haven't acted on this fast enough, is hire good people. And if you make a wrong hire and it's a bad fit, you have to fire fast, because you only have, again, so many dollars. It's cash flow. We have to make sure every dollar that we spend is yielding dollars in return. And if we make a bad hire, it can impact that cash flow. It can impact that relationship with our customers. It can drag us into working in the business more than working on the business, which hopefully we'll talk about that a little bit later. So hiring is key, and finding the right people and failing fast in making the change when you need to. You have to have the courage to do it.
You do have to. I think there's an emotional component to that key piece that gets in the way sometimes of making smart decisions. But you have to be strong enough and okay with maybe not feeling so great as you're having the conversation, but it is kind of ripping off the Band-Aid, or else the wound's going to get bigger and bigger. So people, hiring the right people or letting the wrong people go.
Absolutely.
Tell me about another aspect of people should you have a partner? Should you have a mentor? Should you have a coach? Should you have I call it a board of directors? What are your thoughts on that? Should business owners have those?
Yes, and yes. All those and above.
Okay.
So when I think about the times I was looking to consider starting the business, or when I've had challenges where I've need to address something, you have to have those people that you trust, that you can reach out to and get advice. You also have to have people who aren't just going to tell you what you want to hear, because we all want to hear, no, stay on this track, no, you're doing it absolutely right. But you have to have people that are willing to say, did you think about it this way? Or if you go down this route, here are the scenarios that could happen. Scenario A, B, C. Have you thought about that? That devil's advocate, that cheerleader, right? You need all of those people around you for you to be successful. If you try to go it alone, at least for myself, I'm not smart enough to do all these things, accounting, right? That comes with it, the marketing associated with the role, the operational components. There's so many areas that we're just not experts in. So you have to have people beside you who can play those roles, bring, experience to you so you can be successful.
And I think if we, sometimes I see people say, well, like, let's say marketing, for example. Well, I could probably do that myself. Or I can just hire someone, for $15 an hour to post something on social media. In the end, though, it's not probably a good use of time. I mean, I always say hire the expert. Hire the expert, because if your time is valuable, right? So if you don't have the right people in your business, you're spending your time on things that you don't need to be spending time on. I don't know. They're all intertwined. It's like do you want to learn it? Do you want to learn something, or would you rather have someone working on it who knows what they know and knows what they're doing? So you also, in our kind of outline here, you mentioned, and I like this, set a time aside each week to work on your business. So tell me your thoughts on that.
That is probably the hardest one of all of these, because we get so involved in the day-to-day of our business, and we forget that we have to continue to work on the business. And if we don't set that time on our calendar, it will easily get lost, because the business never stops. And we'll talk about work-life balance,
yes,
hopefully in another section. But if we don't set time to think about where the business is going, right, the things that we should be focusing on, making sure that, what we're doing really continues to solve the problems for our customers today and tomorrow, because we want our business to last for the long haul. Looking at our metrics to see how overall as a business we're performing, we can get off track really, really fast in any of those scenarios.
How you manage your mind reflects how you manage your time, right?
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah, if we think that we need to be working on tasks and in it, then we lose perspective of the whole big picture. But it's hard. That's a hard thing. It's a hard thing. So
I think it's one of the hardest pieces of it.
I would agree. There's so many things that can, you have to really decide what your priorities are, right? In order to figure that out. And those can quickly escape you, because your brain likes to think whatever's in front of you is the priority. So, okay. Scaling. Tell me about that. What do you think? Thoughts?
Be smart about scaling. First of all, do you need to scale? Does your business require you to scale? Some businesses may not. Maybe all you want to do is offer a service, and you're happy with you being the service provider, and you can get the balance in where financially it makes sense, right? Work-life balance, it makes sense. It's doing everything that I need. So maybe I don't want to scale or need to scale. It's a personal choice. So we always think because we're an entrepreneur that we have to scale, scale, scale. So think about, do you even want to scale your business? Can you be successful as an individual? And if you want to scale, be smart about, how you go about it. So test the market a little bit about, what components should I scale? You don't always have to scale everything all at once. You can scale pieces and parts of a service that you offer, or you can scale a product first versus every product in your catalog that you offer.
Yeah.
Brick and mortar, there's a whole nother conversation, which do you need to invest in brick and mortar, or are there other alternatives before you go that direction? And if you do need to invest in brick and mortar, maybe instead of going and signing that 3 to 5 to 7 to 10-year lease, you do a pop-up space and you pilot it and see, is this what I really want to do that's lower risk, that allows you to kind of test the waters from that perspective. So I think these are all things as entrepreneurs we have to think about, because we all hear the stories of how some juggernaut company just went from 1 person to 30 to 100 but the majority of small businesses that are out there, scale, I don't want to say slowly, but methodically, as they take on additional customers, as they take on additional products, as they test things in the marketplace. Don't think you have to go out day one and have everything you need, and you're going to be, from 1 to 100 overnight. It's not typically how most small businesses scale.
I know the brick and mortar piece, my antenna went up, because I know you've thought about, this is something you've not struggled with, but been challenging, or a debate you've had in your own head, right?
Well, it's a mistake I made early on. I went into a brick and mortar early on, and shortly after I had signed a lease, the whole area around went under construction, and we couldn't get parking, we couldn't get some other things, and it was going to jeopardize my business. And if I really would have looked back and done the due diligence, one, I probably didn't even need the space or the size of the space. The location was going to end up growing. And I thought, this is going to be great because I'm going to be first in. Well, first in means all the construction happens around you. Mm-hmm. So there's so many lessons learned. We could have,
have a whole podcast
on coffee. We could have a couple cocktails over my experience with that. But I would say, just be really mindful about, do you need to go there so fast? What are the alternatives? And can you kind of pilot those things? I'm a huge proponent, even in business, when I coach others and advise others, and in my career as an HR professional, piloting things before we took it across the enterprise.
That's okay. Pilot. I want everybody to remember that word. Pilot it before, and I'm trying to think of another P word. Pushing forward. Pilot before pushing forward.
Pilot before push.
Yeah. So, all right. So how do you stay motivated? These are like a lot of things we got to think about. How do you stay motivated? What has to happen?
I think you have to do what you have a passion for and what you enjoy. If you don't enjoy it, you won't have passion for it long, because it will consume you.
Yeah.
When you run your own business, we sometimes start because we talk about, we want the work-life balance. We want the things that come with it, but it is really part of your life and your work. And you are going to, be involved in it morning, noon, and night, I say, and your family's going to be involved in it. We can talk about all those components, but you really have to enjoy it and have a passion for it and feel you can make a difference in it.
So tell me about the family piece. Since I coach mostly women, I coach 99% of my clients are women, and family is top of mind. Not that family isn't top of mind with men, but it is top of mind. Yeah.
So top of mind because family comes first. And we have to figure out as women, not that men don't have this issue, but as women, we have to figure out how to juggle all that we do as wives, moms, sisters, daughters, all those things that come into play. So never forget that we have to make time for those things because they're first and foremost. Second is, if you're going to run your own business, it's a family affair because it will consume you. You will go on the emotional highs and lows that come with having your own business. And you have to be prepared for that, and so does your family. And to help you through those times, to understand what you're going through during those times. And they're also a great extra helping hand. I don't know, in both of my businesses, my children have helped at art events and been reception. They've helped with installs. They have, just even been my cheerleader at times when I needed them to be present. My husband, he has been my mechanic, my videographer, my extra set of hands, all those things that they get involved with that you're going to ask them to do, or need them to do through this journey, that physical, the emotional, with your spouse, maybe it's even the financial. So make sure that they're a part of it and they have a voice.
What do you think balance, what's your definition of balance, work-life balance? How do you position that when someone asks you or says, Jill, help me, everything feels out of balance?
This has been a topic. I'm an HR person too, right? This has been a topic my entire career.
Yes.
And I don't know that I have a great answer on it. I've coached people in this. I've done workshops on this topic. I try myself to figure out what that means and what that looks like. And the only answer I could ever come up with is, the things that you need to do to keep yourself, your relationships, and your business healthy. And you have to prioritize, what matters to you and what you can say no to. And if you can't do those things, your life will get out of balance. For an example, if you know anything about an Enneagram, I'm a 4. Means I love to help, right? I love, and if someone asked me to do something, to show up for many, many years, I would take it on, right? And I was a working mom. There was a time I felt I had to bake the cookies, right? When it was time for the cookies, right? All the pressures and things that came with it. Or, hey, I'm going to this event. Do you want to go to this event? We should go to this event. And you own your own business and you're going, should I go to this event? Should I not go to this event? What's the opportunity cost, right? All these things where you're guilted into, my mother calls and says, we're having a family gathering, are you going to be able to make it this Sunday? All those things that come in to your life, you have to be able to prioritize and get comfortable with the word no, or not this time. And once you do, it is so freeing. It's so freeing because we can then put our energy towards the things that bring value. We can put our energy towards the things that matter that in that moment, which I think is critical. And that goes to some other things that we're talking about, just time management.
Yep.
So I'm a checklist girl. I've always loved a good checklist. I start my day, with a checklist. I have my big checklist, which is all the stuff that I need to do, which I look at on a regular basis, but that is not the list in front of me every day because it would overwhelm me. It would consume me and I would feel like I got nothing accomplished. So what I do is I have my little daily planner and I pick and choose what I need to accomplish for the day and those priorities. And that's right, work time, making sure I get up and get my water in. If we need, get putting in the exercise, the work time, the strategy time, all those things go on here. But I do it for the day in small lots. So at the end of the day, if I can check off 4 or 5 things, I feel really good about it versus I checked off 4 or 5 things on my list of 100 I feel bad about. Does that make sense?
Totally makes sense. I'm a big
This is
proponent
how
of
we
this
get
full focus thinking. And that's exactly what that is. What's your daily big 3, I call it.
right. That's how we get work-life balance too, because the other list is so overwhelming.
Yes, it is.
And we have to just chunk it day by day and give ourselves grace when we can't get everything done or, feel comfortable in the no.
And it can look different in different seasons of life too, this elusive work-life balance. Like I know,
Absolutely.
for example, my 2 college kids in May are going to be home together for 2 weeks. And that's it. The whole, for like a 9-month span. And I blocked off my calendar. I'm like, I'm not, or as much as I can blocked it off, because in that little season of the month of May, work-life balance is going to look a lot different. So it doesn't always have to look like the same thing.
You're right.
Yeah, it just doesn't. So tell me last about the people from a networking perspective. I'm very curious as to what your take is on that in terms, like, what is networking? How do we connect? How important is it if you're a business owner?
I think it's important to be connected and network as a business owner. If you're doing it for the right reasons and in the right way, it needs to be intentional. It needs to be thoughtful. And it needs to be reciprocal. So when I say thoughtful, we can't go to everything or be everywhere. So how do we focus on the things that are really going to bring value? Value for our business, value for us, and even value for the audience that we're going to be with. So that's important. I think that the next area with that is, intentional when you go. So what are you going to, if you're going to invest, what are you looking to get out of it? Is it just to get new ideas? Is it to find new clients? Is it, I just need a break from, work and I need to go out and have some fun and meet new people? Like, what are you trying to accomplish? And how do you go about it? I get, for example, coffee meetings. I get a lot of requests for coffee meetings. And, I used to say, yes, I'll go meet you for coffee. And I would spend, all the time in the car. And I know we tell people, hey, invite people for coffee, buy them a coffee, all those kind of things. But I realized when I do that, I spend more time in the car and I've lost valuable work time. So I've done those virtually now instead of always meeting someone directly for coffee. So now if it's a critical relationship or the next step, then I'll do a physical meeting. But there are often many times we can do those things remotely. And then when I say reciprocal, that you give back when you're doing networking and you're connecting, that you're not only there to sell your business. Don't get real salesy. I always say, can't stand when I'm in a room and everyone hands me their cards and gives me the 20-minute pitch on their business or wants me to buy on the spot or consume me in their product. Be thoughtful and mindful if you are there to connect, talk about what you do, who you are, and then step away. Don't try to oversell and don't try to, just push your agenda forward. Reciprocate by, if you need something and some advice while you're there or want to make a connection, how can you do the same for that person you're talking to?
Be intentional and reciprocal. I think that's the summary of that
thoughtful,
one.
Reciprocal.
Yeah. Love it. Okay. Well, this has been so fun.
It has been fun.
There's so many things we could talk about for so much longer. In this mini series, I am bringing on guest experts in the areas of people and money and systems and processes and meetings and networking and that kind of thing. So stay tuned, listeners, for those episodes which are coming up in the weeks ahead. Jill, how do you define leveling up? This is what I'd really love to have your perspective. What does leveling up mean to you?
It's a great question. And for me, it means showing up every day the best of my ability for that day, right? Yeah. For myself, for my family, for my clients, and, just doing the best I can. And some days I'm better than others, but every day I set out to be my best. And I think that's what leveling up is really all about for me.
Love that. So you have to decide how you want to show up. And hopefully it's going to be show up as your best. I love it. So, Jill, where can people connect with you? What's your best way for connection?
Sure.
If they can't take you out to coffee, because they live far, far away, or they could do or virtual coffee or whatever. What's the best way to connect?
LinkedIn is always great. So I'm out on LinkedIn. You can find me there. You can find me on social media, websites. So my business is High Frequency Arts. Our website is highfrequencyarts.com. On the HR side, it's evolvedhrgroup.com. Those are really the best ways to find me.
She's on LinkedIn, ladies and gentlemen. Go find her there. You're great on LinkedIn. So thank you. Thank you so much for being here and taking the time to share your expertise and knowledge with the listeners.
Thanks for having me. It's so much fun. I hope I gave some valuable advice, and I know you and I could talk forever. So
we could. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
So there were so many takeaways in that conversation that I could have 10 more podcasts, right? But I would love you, my listeners, I would love you to share with me what resonated most with you. Send me a direct message or an email. Find me on social media and let me know. To me, I think one of the biggest lessons learned is that you are going to learn lessons along the way, and your learning is never over. Okay. And there's so many people out there that can help you create what you're looking to create, or help you figure out what you want to create in life and in business. And you are missing out if you're trying to go this alone. You are really missing out on a lot of the joy that being both a woman and an entrepreneur and a CEO and a business owner can bring, how it can enrich your life. And I think that comes across in this conversation with Jill. So stay tuned for the next few episodes. Also, I want to remind you that the week of May 8th, we will be having the Design Your Successful Summer Masterclass. And if you're interested in designing a successful summer for both you and your business and even your family, I encourage you to join us there. There is no reason why you shouldn't be joining us there. The cost is super low. It's very affordable. And I did that on purpose because I want to expose as many people as I can and show them how coaching can help them be way more intentional and how they can design what they actually want. It is not so elusive. So go over to andreaslinks.com. Check out that masterclass. If you haven't signed up, you still have time. And I hope to see you all next week. See you soon. Hey, listening to podcasts is great, but you also have to do something to kick your business up a notch. You need to take some action, right? So go to Andrea's with an S, links with an S.com, andreaslinks.com, and take the quiz. I guarantee you'll walk away knowing exactly what your next best step is to level up.